Chapter 9. George whirled around the dance floor with one partner after another. First, Linda Farrar's cousin, then Jim Parker, and finally a friend Jim had brought with him. Across the room, Bess was also dancing, laughing and clearly making a show of having a wonderful time. But Nancy's feet seemed to stick to the floor. Her body barely swayed to the song pulsing in the smoky air. "Nancy, maybe we ought to call it a night," Ned shouted over the loud music. Nodding her head wearily, Nancy stopped dancing. Ned put his arm around her shoulders and guided her off the floor. "I'll bet Bess doesn't stay mad at you for more than a few hours," he consoled her. Nancy's glance strayed to Bess and Alan, who were rocking to an old Rolling Stones tune. As if sensing that she was being watched, Bess turned and shot icy daggers with her glance across the crowded room. Then she guided Alan around, leaving Nancy to stare at her back. "I don't know," Nancy said glumly. "Besides, it's not just Bess. It's Barton and the record pirating and my father going out with Anne Nordqvist." "Look, at this point you don't know if Anne Nordqvist is anything more than an enthusiastic tourist, right?" Ned asked. "She might not have anything to do with the pirating at all." "Maybe not. I mean, she did seem really sweet when I met her, but the Chinese connection is the only plausible link I've been able to turn up so far between that wallet I found and the record scam. The key words are 'so far,' Nan. You don't know anything for certain yet. So how about if we head back to the hotel and you try to relax and get a good night's rest? Tomorrow you'll have lots of energy. Maybe you'll be able to crack this case once and for all." The corners of Nancy's mouth turned up for the first time all evening. "Okay, Mom." "Just giving you good, sensible advice, my dear," teased Ned in a high voice. They got their coats and said their goodbyes, making plans to have breakfast with George the next morning. "See you in the hotel dining room," George said, as Nancy and Ned were leaving. "And Nancy, don't get freaked out about Bess. She'll come around. She loves you to pieces, just like I do." Nancy gave George a big hug. "Thanks. You're the best." "Yeah, you're a good friend," Ned agreed, giving George an affectionate pat on the back. Hey, please. You don't want me to get a swollen ego, do you?" George winked. Nancy and Ned headed for the exit. Cool, crisp air greeted Nancy as she stepped outside. She inhaled the night, savoring the relative quiet after the pulsing music and din of voices in the club. The street was dark. Except for a street lamp down the block, the only source of light was the club's marquee. "Something catch your eye?" Ned asked. "No, just thinking what this street must look like in the daytime. Pretty dingy, I guess." Nancy's eyes slowly gazed up and down the street. "Yeah, there's some difference between the junk piled out here and the way the club's fixed up." Ned's hand gently took hold of Nancy's. "Do you want to walk for a while? It may be seedy down here, but I don't think it's dangerous." Nancy smiled. Maybe now was a good time for them to work on their relationship. "I'd love a walk with you, Ned. Dangerous or not." Ned could feel the sincerity in her words. Slowly, he leaned forward to kiss her. "Ned? Ned Nickerson!" The mood was broken by a short young man who was leaving the club behind them. He rushed up to them, brushing his wavy brown hair out of one eye. Ned took a hard look at him. "Dave, isn't it?" "Yeah, Dave Peck. Long time no see, buddy." Dave stuck out a leather-gloved hand, and Nancy could see a thick gold chain bracelet studded with gems that sparkled under the streetlights. Ned grasped Dave's hand in his. "Yes, a long time. I guess I didn't recognize you all dressed up." "Yup, great new threads, don't you think?" Dave patted his leather jacket, which was decorated with tucks and folds and numerous zippers. He wore it open, revealing a short, muscular body in a pair of beige slacks and a silk shirt, several of the top buttons open to show off more gold jewelry. On his feet were a pair of green snakeskin cowboy boots. "Oh, Nancy, this is Dave Peck. We know each other from school. Dave, my girlfriend, Nancy." "Hello," Nancy said, trying to imagine Dave at Emerson College. Somehow she couldn't quite picture him burning the midnight oil, at least not over books. As Dave turned toward her, the smile on his face slipped away. He stared at her with his mouth open, his eyes wide, as if she were a frightening vision from the past. "Is something wrong?" Nancy asked. Dave gave his head a hard shake. "Oh, no. No, I'm happy to meet you." He grasped her hand, and through his tight gloves, Nancy could feel a large ring on one finger. "Any pal of Nickerson's is a pal of mine." He turned his attention back to Ned. "So, what's happening?" "The usual," Ned responded politely. "Studying, going to classes. Midterms are coming up in a few weeks." "So you're just in town for a vacation?" Ned nodded. "We had Friday off because Emerson is hosting an education conference. I decided to spend the 3-day weekend here with Nancy. How about you? What are you doing these days?" Clearly that was the question Dave had been waiting for. "Man, I've got to tell you, dropping out of school was the best thing I ever did." So that's his story, Nancy thought. "Life is great," Dave went on. "Couldn't be better. No more forcing myself to get up in the morning and go to classes. No more tests or papers. I do what I want. Lots of money, lots of chicks." He gave a lewd laugh and flashed Ned a thumbs-up sign. "No offense to the little lady," he added to Nancy. Nancy gritted her teeth. "Yup, this town is great if you're into success. Got myself a great little business." "You've got your own business?" Ned blurted out. "Well, actually, I've got a sort of a partner," Dave hedged. Nancy found herself betting anything that Dave's so-called partner was, in truth, his boss. She could tell that Ned didn't quite buy his story either. Though whatever Dave was doing, it was plain that he did have money to throw around. "So, what is it you do?" Ned asked, as if reading Nancy's mind. "I wouldn't mind a little extra pocket money," he kidded. "A little of this, a little of that," Dave replied vaguely. "But I still like to keep up with the rock scene. No better place for it in the world than right here in this city." "I guess not," Ned said. "Well, it was nice talking to you, Dave. We'd better get going." "Sure. There's my limo anyhow." Dave pointed to a black stretch limo pulling around the corner and stopping across the street from the club. "Wow, that's some car!" Ned couldn't hide his astonishment. "She's a beaut, huh?" Dave said smugly. "Well, good bumping into you, pal. Nice to meet you, Nancy." His words were cordial, but Nancy caught the peculiar look in his eye again as he addressed her. "Bye, Dave." Nancy watched him go, stepping into the street. She gave a little shudder. Dave was definitely not her idea of a nice guy. And she seemed to make him uncomfortable, too. "What is it about him?" she said to Ned. "He gives me the creeps." "Yeah, he's pretty weird. Truth is, he didn't drop out of school. He got kicked out. Never did a bit of work. I don't know why he was there in the first place. The only thing he seemed at all into was his part-time job at the Emerson Record World. But there was some problem there, too. I have the feeling he got fired. Anyway, I stopped seeing him there when I went in to buy albums. Pretty soon after that, I stopped seeing him around campus at all." "A record store, Ned?" Nancy asked, a funny feeling in the pit of her stomach. "Isn't it a little weird, all this record stuff?" Nancy watched Dave climb into the back of the limo. Then the thought hit like a cyclone. "Oh no, Ned." Her voice was low. "He fits the exact description." "What description? What are you saying?" "I think Dave might have been one of the guys backstage the night Barton disappeared. He could even have been the one who hit me over the head. Maybe that's why he kept giving me such funny looks." Nancy darted from the club entrance into the street, determined to make out the license plate before the limo vanished. But just as she passed a pile of crates, Ned cried, "Nancy, look out!" Nancy had never heard such panic in his voice. She turned suddenly, looking back at him, but lost her balance. As she fell, her eyes caught the glint of something metallic cutting through the air and heading straight for her. Her body slammed onto the sidewalk as a knife jammed into a crate just inches away. It quivered there, giving its serpentine handle the illusion of movement. Ned was by her side in seconds, but Nancy was already on her feet, running down the street as the limo pulled around a corner. "It stopped for a moment," she said, as if they were waiting to see what would happen. The limo was too far ahead to catch, but she did see the license plate. The numbers were caked with mud, but the decoration on the right side was clearly visible. A dragon with its tail curved into an L. Then it turned the corner and sped off into the night. "Did you see the dragon?" Nancy asked breathlessly. "Yeah, I saw it. Nancy, are you all right?" "I guess so." She trembled at the thought of her near brush with death. The fall didn't hurt much, but that knife came pretty close. "Come on, let's get it. Someone has finally given us our first real clue." Cautiously, they ran to the pile of crates where Nancy had fallen. "The police might be able to lift some." She came to a sudden stop and stared in amazement at the crate. "It's gone! The knife is gone!" End of chapter 9.